Hello, coming to you from the renewed city of board gaming, Omaha, Nebraska. Welcome to the Out of the Dust podcast. I'm your host, Resolute Bryce Ann. Tied in with the popular recurring Out of the Dust Geek list on Board Game Geek, the Out of the Dust podcast is a bi-weekly podcast that is focused on re-exploring games we play that we hadn't previously played in a year or more. Why did the game get dusty? Why did you decide to dust it off? How does the game compare to how you remembered it? Are you likely to play it more often in the future? These are the questions that we're interested in examining on Out of the Dust. This week on the podcast, episode 79. On the Out of the Dust segment, I'll bring Letter Tycoon out of the dust, and a contributor will dust off Clans. On the reaction segment, I review my 2020 predictions. On the What I've Been Playing segment, I review Dune Imperium. On the Obscure Bryce Games segment, I review Dino Race, and we wrap up the episode with my top 10 of 2020 countdown. I had a chance to bring Letter Tycoon, a 2015 stock-style word game from publisher Breaking Games and designer Brad Brooks, out of the dust. I last played it 4 years, 2 months, and 23 days ago when I acquired a copy for my collection. It's been languishing in my collection since then because it really does need a higher player count for maximum effect, and the game's very specific target audience is often hard to find a group for. But the game's release on BGA has afforded me the opportunity to play it again, and I've reacquainted myself with the game last month. It's a clever take on word games and is more fun than I remember it being, though I don't recommend playing it turn-based. It's supposed to be a brisk-paced game, and playing turn-based means players may be tempted to use an online Scrabble dictionary to maximize their word effectiveness. But the online real-time game also suffers from the same flaw in-person games do. The game can sometimes drag between turns as players try to figure out what to do with the new display of communal letters they receive at the beginning of their turn. It's the sort of game that you really can't plan ahead on because the board state changes so much between turns. That's an important thing to know going in, but if everyone is aware of it and is cognizant about not pressuring people who are considering their play, there's a gem of a game here to discover. The combination of mechanics are completely unique and work well as players purchase investments in different letters with the objective of reaching a plateau of stock value and money on hand first. The thoughtful endgame trigger ensures everyone is focused on these goals and not getting distracted with other pursuits, which makes it the sort of game everyone can be successful at regardless of experience level. Which also makes the game an interesting choice for showing people new to the hobby, or an experienced group looking for a change of pace. Let's see what a contributor brought out of the dust. Merzum, username Merzum, brought the 2003 Spiel des Jahres nominated Clans from publisher Vetus Connection and acclaimed designer Leo Colavini out of the dust. Clans is a unique area enclosure game that Merzum last played 7 years, 3 months, and 8 days ago. He writes a lot of games out of the dust this month as I'm doing my personal Americondo challenge, in which I try to play all my games in my collection by starting letter each month. After successful plays of the A pile and B pile, I'm trying to play primarily games starting with the letter C over a couple of months as I have more than 70 plus games starting with the letter C. Some of these games have been collecting dust for several years already. Clans is one of the oldest games in my collection. I've mostly played it 2-player with my wife, and then it didn't really spark joy, so that's why it was left behind on the shelves. Now we played it with my oldest son, he actually was the one asking for it, and we had good fun. It's a kind of hidden color game together with majority control, quite abstract for my taste but still good stuff, and it plays in 30 minutes or less, so a keeper and hopefully we can get it played a bit more. Thanks for the contribution, Merzum. This is a game I have positive memories of, but would also be an out of the dust game for me the next time I play it. I wouldn't mind that happening soon myself, though. Reaction segment time. This episode on the reaction segment, I'm going to review my predictions for 2020 and see how they turned out. First were some predictions concerning the state of the BGG Top 10. I thought Twilight Struggle, Gaia Project, and Scythe were all games vulnerable to falling out of the top 10 to be replaced by Spirit Island, Wingspan, and Nemesis. The only part of that I was correct about was Scythe falling out, but it was replaced by Great Western Trail, which had fallen out but climbed back in. Spirit Island climbed a spot, and Nemesis got up to 26, but Wingspan held steady at position 20. What 2020 game would wind up the highest ranked? I speculated On Mars had the biggest advantage to do that, but went out on a limb and said Calico would claim the honor. Those weren't bad predictions, as On Mars got up to position 73, and Calico rounded out the 2020 top 5 at position 495. But Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, stormed up the rankings and is currently ranked 14th overall, an astounding accomplishment for a game less than a year old. I thought Robinson Crusoe would fall the furthest out of the top 50. It wound up falling 7 positions, but a few games fell more. Marco Polo, Race for the Galaxy, and Seven Wonders all fell 9 positions out of the top 50. Interesting to note, a commonality amongst all of those games is either sequels, new editions, or spin-offs were released for them either this year or last. My final prediction was to identify some 2020 industry trends. I wasn't sure we'd see as many Grail game reprints as 2019, but we got a few, and some very exciting announcements, including one for Geekopolis. I also thought we'd continue to see a steady supply of Gloomhaven-inspired mega-epic games launch campaigns on Kickstarter. That's happened, and it seems French publishers are leading the way on that, not the least of which is Awakened Realms. I also predicted that the main thing to emerge in 2020 and characterize the year would be a renaissance and revolution in solo designs. I nailed that one! There were designers that typically didn't have solo modes in their games implement them, more and more games in general incorporating them, and a plethora of innovative solo-only games released. And in the midst of a global pandemic that kept most people at home, what serendipitous timing that wound up being! This week on the What I've Been Playing segment, I'm going to tell you about Dune Imperium, the new Dune-themed deck-building worker placement game from publisher Dire World and designer Paul Dennen of Clank fame. This game has been getting a lot of anticipation buzz and was supposed to be released in conjunction with the new Dune feature film, but that release date was pushed back as the producers decide how they want to release the movie in coronavirus world. Thankfully, this game's release was not pushed back with the film. I pre-ordered from Spielbound, Omaha's local board game cafe, based upon my love for the IP and my respect for the designer. I was tentatively optimistic that I'd like this game, enough so to warrant a buy before I try status for it. Was my optimism well-founded? Well, here's how it works. Players take on the role of prominent members of the most prestigious families in the Dune universe. Players have access to a couple of agents or workers at the beginning of the game. Each card in their deck has one or more icons on it that correspond to one of 8 different sections of worker placement spots. Playing a card from their hand dictates which section their agent can take an action in and triggers the agent ability portion of the played card. Worker placement spaces grant players Solari, spice, and water resources, or spend those resources in exciting ways. Other spaces enable a player to place army cubes in their barracks or deploy them to the round's conflict area. Yet other spaces enable a player to advance on one of 4 tracks dedicated to gaining influence with the Emperor, Spacing Guild, Ben Gesserit, and or Fremen. Advancing high enough on these tracks earn victory points and valuable alliances with those various factions, which makes some cards more powerful. Players alternate placement turns like this until they run out of agents to place or don't care to place anymore. Then they take a reveal turn, triggering the reveal abilities of cards left over in their hand. Most of these abilities are attuned to gaining the virtual currency used to purchase more cards to build their deck, though some might grant additional resources or strengthen the conflict. The conflict is resolved after everyone is done with the reveal turn, and it's calculated based on how many army cubes each player has present and various strength modifiers. Winning conflicts might grant additional victory points, track advancements, or resources. Game end conditions are checked at the end of a round, and either the player who reaches 10 victory points first, or has the most spice in the case of a tiebreaker, or the most points at the end of 10 rounds, wins. Oh, this is a great game! As we'll see coming up in my top 10 of the year countdown, Dune Imperium made a very positive impression on me. This is a brilliant design, and the innovative combination of worker placement and deck building works excellently here. The theme comes across strongly, and I think this will wind up being the highest-ranked Dune game on BGG before all is said and done. With such a low-scoring game, players fight over every single point, and there's a wonderful sense of tension that arises as the game progresses. This is the sort of game that players will feel genuinely satisfied about winning because they'll know they earned it. There have been a handful of deck-building games that have used a board in the past, and many of them have been very well received. But with Clank under his belt and now Dune Imperium, Paul Dennen has established himself as the authority in this genre, and I'll be automatically taking notice of anything else he comes out with in the future. Obscure Bryce game segment time. This week in the segment I'm going to tell you about Dino Race, a delightful 2014 family race game from Ares Games, publishers of War of the Ring, and designer Roberto Grasso, who has just a couple of titles to his credit, but is better known as the illustrator of the Lorenzo card game and digital game. I remember well the Gen Con when Dino Race released and walking by Ares' booth, catching sight of the game and stopping in my tracks. War of the Ring is well respected as a fine-looking game, but Dino Race is even more impressive, and it's the type of game that demands the attention of anyone walking by. In fact, I bought it on the spot as a completely unplanned whim purchase. Here's how it works. Each player controls a pair of cute dinosaurs trying to advance to the end of a modular racetrack composed of a dozen terrain hexes arranged in a random order. At the beginning of their turn, players draw a terrain card from the deck for each of their dinosaurs still on the track, and then play as many cards in their hand as they like to advance their dinosaurs down the track by matching a terrain card with the terrain of the next hex. Special cards keep things interesting by knocking dinosaurs back a space, stealing cards from others' hands, and tossing an egg piece back and forth. At the end of each turn, a die is rolled. Both sides have a terrain pictured that will grant additional cards to each dino currently standing on that type of terrain, but there's also a volcano side that will turn the hex furthest back to lava. Any dinosaur that falls into the lava must take a negative point lava token, and whoever currently has the egg takes one too before tossing it to another player. Each dinosaur that makes it to the end of the path claims a point trophy token, and the game ends when the second pair of a player with the egg makes it to the end, earning some bonus egg points. Players who manage to collect matching colors of trophies score bonus points, and the player with the highest tally of points wins. I'm not generally a fan of race games, as they often become very predictable partway through the race, but the hidden point system of Dino Race keeps the ultimate result in doubt, which ensures interest and some nice tension and excitement from beginning to end. The lava eating away at the path is a nice touch, and I get genuinely worried about my cute dinos falling into it. There are a lot of elements in this game that don't appear in any race game, and it feels like a very unique experience as a result. This has become one of my family's go-to games since we acquired it years ago, and it keeps making regular appearances. The table presence is lovely, and we've demoed it at local cons in the past too. It's a fun time, and I think Ares Games should reprint and promote it more. Dino Race deserves it. For the next several episodes, I'll be going over my various top 10 lists of 2020. I'll start with my top 10 of 2020. These are all games that came out in 2020. Number 10, Mariposis. Delightful theme, fun movement mechanism, and challenging goals to achieve. This game is the complete package and has been a winner for myself and everyone I've shown it to. I find myself going to a happy place when I play it. I like how the game makes me feel. Number 9, Endangered. I find myself really getting into this game, and it's become one of the rare co-ops that I feel bad for losing because of the theme. Now, since it's a genuinely challenging co-op in which I only recently toggled my first win after several tries, there is a lot of losing that happens. I'm super excited to get the expansion later this year and see what all the new animals bring to the game. Number 8, Solar Storm. 2020 is the year of the solo game, and I'm awarding the next couple of spots with a couple of sci-fi themed ones. I love the tension of Solar Storm as I try to balance everything that needs to be done in the game. This creates lots of great moments in the game, as I hope certain locations aren't revealed when I flip over the damage cards. Number 7, Warp's Edge. Speaking of challenging, what a tough puzzle Warp's Edge is with its various motherships and hordes of unique enemy fighters. This game keeps me coming back for more as I try different approaches with each mothership, and blowing those big ships up after much effort has created some of the most satisfying gaming moments of the year. Number 6, Castles of Tuscany. Both Neufeld games will appear on this list. Castles of Tuscany delights with its optimization puzzle and challenge for players to time their actions just right to make everything in their regions fall into place. The pace is just right for the mechanics and will ensure it sees regular play in the coming year. Number 5, Marco Polo 2. I'm super impressed with this sequel. Marco Polo is a great game, but it's been improved in every way with this follow-up effort. I love how each part feels so connected. The various mechanics are wonderfully intertwined, and the end result is a masterful design that will have me trusting other sequel games for years to come. Number 4, Dune Imperium. One of the last new games I played in 2020, but it's made a tremendously positive impression. The worker placement and the deck building work seamlessly together, and I love the tension as players battle for every point. With Clank already under his belt, I'm taking notice of anything this designer puts out in the future. Number 3, Tekkenu. Chalk Tekkenu up as the latest excellent entry in the T-series of games. The game reminds me of another T-game, Trajan, in many ways, as I feel like I'm doing something interesting in each part of the board that comes together in clever, subtle ways. The learning curve was really steep, but with the help of another excellent board and dice rulebook, my efforts were rewarded sooner rather than later. Number 2, Empyreal. What a clever game this is that combines worker movement, tableau building, route building, and pick up and deliver. In this day and age, any train game that delivers something new to the genre is a remarkable achievement, and Imperial managed to do just that. The stunning table presence is just icing on the cake. Number 1, Bonfire! I'm a Feld fan, but this really is a brilliant design. It's super engaging with multiple players, but easily includes Feld's best solo mode as well. I love clever action selection mechanisms, reactive strategy, and point select opportunities, and Bonfire has all of that in spades. I played it 10 times in December, and then slotting it in at number 5 on my all-time Feld list behind Bruges, Castles of Burgundy, Oracle of Delphi, and Trajan, with potential to move up and surpass one or more of those. Well, that will do it for episode 79. Thanks for listening. Feel free to join the Out of the Desk Podcast Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. Follow the podcast on Twitter at OutOfTheDeskBGG. Leave a comment at the Guild. PM me on BGG under user handle Radagast14 or user handle AnnLee14, or email me at radagast14@CenturyLink.net. And join the Out of the Desk conversation yourself at our monthly geek list at BGG. Alright, play me out, Ananda!